case of Altantuya Sharibu, a 28-year-old Mongolian translator whose body was blown to bits in the Malaysian jungle.
This is Altantuya Sharibu. In 2006, she was taken into the lush jungles of Malaysia and blown to pieces with powerful explosives. But she wasn't the victim of one psycho killer or obsessive maniac. Altantuya was the victim of an extremely corrupt system where sleeping with a high-ranking politician can earn you an unofficial death sentence.
I'm sort of, hang on, what are you telling me? Did you pull the trigger?
Altantuya didn't enter the political or criminal underworlds of Malaysia with intent. She didn't want to climb the ranks or become famous. But through a steamy affair, she opened the doors to a truly nasty world that she just wasn't prepared for.
It has all the elements. It has corruption, it has sex, it has money, it has murder, it has everything.
Let's dive into the tragic case and uncover the truth that the Malaysian government is still trying to hide. Sometime between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the night between October 17th and 18th, 2006, Altantuya Sharibu was bound and thrown into a dark car. She was driven into the thick jungle outside of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia's capital city. While she was screaming and begging for her life, she was shot in the head with a high-powered semi-automatic rifle. Altantuya didn't know the two men that did this. They looked like government guards, but their faces were covered. She died scared and confused, with no answers and no chance to say goodbye to her loved ones. Then the two men tied military-grade explosives to her arms and legs.
C4 explosives are explosives meant to bring down buildings, not to kill people.
Finally, they pressed a button, and Altantuya's body was blown to little bits and scattered all across the jungle floor.
What happened was just like in the movies. I've seen such terrible things only in the movies. But this time, the movie became my reality.
The guards left a bloodbath behind them. Outrageously, they thought they could just simply run away and face no consequences. But they would be caught, and they would uncover a story filled with dishonesty, corruption, and sheer horror.
I went to that place several days later. I had to go there, where my daughter was killed. I saw the actual crime scene. It looked like there'd been a war, a bomb site. That's what I saw. Just imagine.
As you can imagine, it wasn't long before this news made the headlines in Malaysia. I mean, how often does someone get blown to bits, let alone a young, innocent woman from a different country? As the media started hounding the murder scene, the police knew they had to get seriously involved. So it also wasn't long before the two killers were named. 30-year-old Chief Inspector Azila Hadri and Corporal Cyril Azhar Umar, who was 35. Not only did they have fancy job names, they were members of the elite Special Actions Unit, and they served as personal bodyguards for the Malaysian Prime Minister, Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. So what were the Prime Minister's personal bodyguards doing killing a 28-year-old Mongolian translator and model?
The number one question on everyone's mind is motive. Everyone wants to know who ordered it, because these two officers who have been found guilty beyond reasonable doubt now didn't even know her. You know, they had no reason to have hurt her in any way.
So, if the Malaysian authorities couldn't get their hands on the bodyguards, they decided to look into the life of Altantuya Sharibu. Altantuya was born on May 6, 1978, in Mongolia, but she was raised in the Soviet Union. She grew up with her sister and two parents who supported her creativity and imagination.
She was a free-spirited, open-hearted person. She had this strong self-confidence to live, learn, and take care of herself.
As a child, Altantuya was exceptional at learning foreign languages. She was fluent in Russian, Mongolian, and Chinese, which were all normal languages to speak in her geographic region. But as she mastered them to perfection, she then became fluent in English and French. In 1990, Altan Tuya moved back to Mongolia, working as a translator. A few years later, she married techno singer Madai. In 1996, they had a son, but their relationship was already in shambles. So when they got divorced, Altan Tuya left her son with her parents. Sometime in the late 1990s, Altan Tuya moved to France and attended modeling school. But she returned to Mongolia after a few months and continued to work in translation as well. In 2003, she married another man and had a second son. But once more, it ended in divorce, and the boy ended up with Altan Tuya's parents. So Altan Tuya decided to focus on her translator work, which took her to China, Singapore, and, you guessed it, Malaysia. In 2006, Altan Tuya told her parents she was going to Malaysia for a few months for a potential big break.
I asked her, "Why are you going there? Do you have any particular work there? Do you know anyone there?" She said, "I've met this big boss there." By big boss, we Mongolians mean a person with great power.
Altan Tuya had met Razak Baginda at a Hong Kong convention in 2004. He was the advisor of former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak. Altan Tuya and Razak were romantically involved, but Razak was married at the time. Still, Razak used a devious excuse. He used Altan Tuya as his translator, and they traveled together to Shanghai, Kuala Lumpur, and Paris. This was a heated affair, and Razak would shower Altan Tuya with luxurious presents and money to help raise her two sons. But nothing lasts forever, especially affairs. So after about a year, Razak started pulling away. Altan Tuya couldn't stand this. She wanted much more than gifts and money. She wanted a relationship. And so she told her dad she would go to Malaysia for a business deal, when, in fact, she was trying to sort things out with her lover. But the more she tried to pursue this, the more Razak started hiding at his mansion. But not even this put her off. This is what she wrote to him in 2006. "Razak, don't play, okay? You call me or I'll come to your home today." And she did. By now, Altan Tuya was harassing Razak, and he wanted a clean way out. Except, he didn't go to the police. He went to the Prime Minister's security chief, who then put him in contact with Azila Hadri. In an affidavit, it was revealed that Azila bragged to Razak about having killed many people before. Reportedly, Razak urged him not to harm Altan Tuya, just to scare her off. Did Razak tell the truth, or was it just a lie to cover himself after the tragedy happened? On the day before Altan Tuya's murder, she went to the police station and filed a report. Someone was following her, and she feared for her life. In the official report, she wrote, "I'm just a normal girl trying to meet my lover who lied to me, who promised many things but now wants to put me in jail or kill me. Maybe it's my fault to blackmail him, but I have my own problems because of his lies. If something happened to me, please check with this person." That evening, Altan Tuya decided to pay her ex-lover another home visit. But just as she was about to ring his doorbell, she was grabbed, tied, and thrown inside an unmarked car. This is how she met her horrific end. A couple of weeks after Altan Tuya's murder, 3 people were in custody: the 2 bodyguards and Razak himself. He was charged with abetting the law.
Today we witness another episode of a consistent pattern of abuse of power.
But Razak's arrest would only be the beginning of a long list of outrageous twists. During his trial, Razak brought a witness to the stand, his private investigator, Bala. He'd hired him to protect him and his family against Altan Tuya. Bala made a shocking declaration. Altan Tuya had also had an affair with the Deputy Prime Minister, Najib Razak. Apparently, it was Najib who had introduced Altan Tuya to Razak at the Hong Kong convention. Even crazier, the 3 of them had dined together in Paris. Also, after a translation deal in Paris, Altan Tuya started demanding $500,000 after Najib secured a huge deal to purchase a submarine. She said the deal would not have been possible without her translation, and that she was promised a big cut of the money. Needless to say, the media's eyes fell on the Prime Minister now, but his statement made it all very confusing.
I never met her at all. I'm not worried because the truth will prevail, and I believe in the system. I believe that I've not done anything wrong, so therefore there's nothing to be worried about.
Here's where it gets nasty. The next day, after Najib's statement, Bala signed a form saying he didn't mean what he said about the Prime Minister. He claimed he said it under duress. Then, he vanished.
My initial response was, this is total rubbish, because he had spent a long time with me, going through everything piece by piece. So when the phrase under duress was used, I was convinced there's somebody else behind it.
Bala's lawyer was worried he'd been assassinated by the Deputy Prime Minister's team, but almost 3 years later, another twist happened.
Bala telephoned me from Kashmir. The first thing he said was basically, sorry boss, I've caused you a lot of trouble.
Bala hadn't been killed. He was hiding. But when he met with his lawyer in Singapore, he confirmed his allegations about Altan Tuya and the Prime Minister as true.
Is there anything in the first SD which you said which is not true?
No, nothing.
After he made this statement, army officials turned up at his house and intimidated him into rebutting it.
Army intelligence was waiting in front of my house, he said. They were already watching your house, he said. The Malay man asked me whether you are married. I said yes. Do you love your family? I said yes. You love your family, just follow instruction, just follow him. Everything will be okay, he said.
At the call பண்ணி என்னை கேட்டார் மதர் is anybody outside there? நான் சொன்னேன் ஏன் ஒரு சேஃப் காட்டி நிற்கிது அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன். You just lock the gate, உள்ளுக்கு கொண்டு போ பிள்ளைங்களாம் கொண்டு போன்னு சொன்னார். கொண்டு போயிட்டு வச்சது அதோட no calls, no nothing.
When Bala got home at 2 a.m., his wife saw him frozen with fear for the first time in her life.
Like பயந்து போய் அப்போ நான் கேட்டேன் என்ன ஆச்சு சுரேஷ் கேட்போம். சுரேஷ் told me பாலா வந்து நம்பர் 1 மேலே வந்து இது பண்ணி எஸ்டி கொடுத்துருக்காரு, தப்பாக கொடுத்துருக்காரு, அதனால் பாலாவுக்கு உயிர் மேலே ஆபத்து. ஸோ நீங்கள் என்ன செய்யணும், இந்த நாட்டை விட்டு வெளியே போயிடணும். இப்போ நான் சொன்னால் எப்படி நாங்கள் சர்வைவ் பண்ணுறதுன்னு கேட்கும்போது பாலாவுக்கு வந்து 20,000 வெள்ளி சம்பளமோ 5 மில்லியனும் ஆஃபர் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க அப்படின்னு. யார் ஆஃபர் பண்ணது கேட்டதுக்கு நஜீப்னு சொல்லி சொன்னார்.
Bala and his family were in exile for 5 years. During this time, the prosecution against Razak and Najib fell apart. Razak was acquitted, and he insisted both he and Razak were innocent.
What I have said today is what I told the police. That Datuk Najib had never met the deceased. How do I know? It's like asking me, I mean, I know. Okay? I know.
I mean, how cocky do you have to be to laugh in the face of commonplace police questions? The attention on Razak slowly wilted away. But as Najib became Prime Minister, the media started flooding him with questions about Altan Tuya and the shady submarine deal. You see, not only did Altan Tuya claim he owed her money, but the deal itself was super sketchy. Why was Malaysia buying 2 military submarines from France? First, Razak and Najib denied ever involving Altan Tuya in the deal as a translator. Razak claimed he met Altan Tuya in 2004, and the deal was secured in 2002, so she couldn't have been there.
The purported deal was signed in June 2002. I first met the deceased November or December 2004. That's almost a 2-year lapse. So I just failed to see the connection.
But when the French media started digging, guess what? They found reports putting Altan Tuya next to the 2 men. Soon enough, the reports were in the hands of the Malaysian anti-corruption NGO Suaram.
There were receipts and air travel documents of both Razak Baginda and Altan Tuya. She had traveled to Macau, she had traveled to Hong Kong and to Paris with Baginda. The link with Altan Tuya in the Scorpion submarine may have been informal, at the least. But it did not preclude the fact that she may have known many of the details of the procurement.
As French and Malaysian anti-corruption organizations started looking into the submarine deal, they discovered that hundreds of millions of dollars were being funneled into companies owned by Razak, Najib, and other high-ranking politicians. This was a viper's nest of corruption. And it didn't end there. Cynthia Gabriel, who led Suaram, started receiving death threats. But she didn't back off. In fact, she started looking even harder into the Prime Minister's relationship with Altan Tuya.
Even if he had never met her, he would have known what was her role, what was her relationship. He would have known who she was.
Still, Najib maintained his innocence and insisted that the media was lying, both about his relationship to Altan Tuya and about his profits from the submarine deal. It seems like corruption doesn't have an end or a common sense limit, and Altan Tuya was caught in the middle of it. While the Malaysian police seemed to put an end to the inquiry into Altan Tuya's death, her father never did.
It is very difficult for me, mentally, to keep going to Malaysia. I feel horrified, to be honest. It feels as if I'm entering this frozen ice, even though it's a hot tropical country.
And his fears were well-founded. When Al Jazeera reporter Mary Ann Jolly traveled to Malaysia to meet Altan Tuya's father, she was stopped at the Kuala Lumpur airport and threatened.
I've just been told that I'm on a bad list. This is the second time this has happened to me. When I left to go to Hong Kong to see Mr. Sharabu, I was pulled aside, and now it's happening again. It obviously shows the sensitivity of this story, and I've obviously come under the spotlight.
Marianne was forcefully deported back to Sydney, even though she hadn't broken any laws.
I'm being deported from Malaysia. I'm being escorted by about 5 customs agents and a man in military outfit. So I'm about to board my flight to Sydney.
This is where another outrageous twist comes into play. Now you might be wondering, what happened to the 2 security guards all this time? Well, the same lawyers' teams that fiercely defended Razak and Najib tried to protect the guards too. Their trials dragged on for years, with the judge wanting the death sentence for them and their defense claiming they were innocent and asking for an acquittal. Finally, in January 2015, the federal court overturned their acquittal and sentenced the 2 men to death for first-degree murder. But Cyril never showed up to the appeal. That's because he fled to Australia. He thought he could earn his freedom and a fresh start. But as soon as he made it to the border, he was arrested and transferred to the Villawood Immigration Detention Center. This triggered quite a big movement among Malaysian justice seekers. A former prime minister urged Australia to offer Cyril asylum so that he talks about the full level of Malaysian corruption and incriminate whoever made the hit order on Altan Tuya.
If he thinks he is safe in Australia, I think he would be able to say who instructed him.
Australian authorities uncovered a desperate message Cyril sent to someone he calls boss right as he was fleeing to Australia. I am in difficulties here. I want 2 million Australian before boss come to meet me. I need to guarantee the future of my child here. After that, I want 15 million Aus. I will not return to Malaysia ever, boss. I won't bring down the PM. If he promised not to bring down the Prime Minister, does this mean he has the power to? This message, at the very least, connects Najib to the murder of Altan Tuya. It's believed that Malaysian authorities then tried to keep Cyril quiet by securing him a safe place in Australia. But if he were ever extradited to Malaysia, he'd have to hang. And that means he would most likely talk. Whatever they did, it worked. From the Australian detention center, Cyril recorded a video saying Najib was innocent. However, Cyril managed to incriminate himself when he confessed about murdering Altan Tuya to an Australian relative.
We were sitting in my home. I was looking at his passport, and I said, look, we've got to get online and do your visa if you want to stay. That's when he proceeded to tell me he'd shot a woman. And I'm sort of, hang on, what are you telling me? I said, are you making this up, or is this the truth? And he said, it's the truth.
Shockingly, Cyril confessed to something else. It wasn't just the 2 bodyguards. It was them 2 and Razak, Altan Tuya's former lover.
I said, did you pull the trigger? Like, did you? He said, no, I didn't pull the trigger. Razak pulled the trigger.
Indeed, Cyril said Altan Tuya was murdered by her ex-lover and his bodyguards simply detonated her body. Cyril also said that he would have died if he refused Razak's orders. With this final shock, Australian and Malaysian authorities are dealing with an extremely murky situation. Malaysian authorities are at the hands of a corrupt government that is trying to protect its politicians, and Australian authorities are weighing a million possibilities as their detainee has changed his story and refuses to make a confession against Razak. Meanwhile, anti-corruption NGOs continue to pursue justice for Alton Tuya. Cynthia Gabriel thinks it's as simple as this.
It seems like very much that she had a lot of information with her, and she was threatening to tell all if she didn't get her portion of the money.
So she threatened to blow the whistle?
Yes.
Former Malaysian Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad spoke about just how corrupt Najib Razak is.
I think it's not a bad thing to have power. But you have a man who is not a dictator, but who abuses everything, undermines all the authorities of government.
And let's be clear, you're talking there about Mr. Najib.
Yeah, I am.
You're taking a big risk doing this, aren't you?
No risk, no gain.
Sadly, this paints a grim picture. Malaysian government officials would do anything to secure their power and money. One life meant nothing in their big game. And the game is indeed huge. In the 2010s, Najib was accused of moving $4 billion from the country's wealth fund straight into his personal bank account. When the US and Switzerland started investigating Najib for this, he claimed it was simply a generous gift from Saudi Arabia.
Nobody gives that amount of money to anybody, not even Bill Gates.
After Dr. Mahathir sued the PM for corruption and abuse of power, Najib issued a new law where the PM can detain anyone without explanation. Sadly, the ambitions and power lust of a few men cost an innocent life.
My daughter did nothing bad to this country. Maybe she made someone furious or mad, but she wasn't a terrorist. She didn't kill anybody. She didn't illegally cross borders. There must be a huge amount of money, power, and possibly crucial operations behind this.
Free Malaysia is calling for the rearrest and conviction of Razak. They remind police that Alton Tuya named Razak in her last report to the police the day before she died. But we have yet to get to the bottom of this terrible story, and Alton Tuya has yet to receive the justice she deserves.
Nothing can replace a mother's love and care for her children. Nothing. Alton Tuya's life was taken away. She was executed. Someday, those people who did this crime will be punished.
What do you think about this case? Was Razak the one that pulled the trigger? How much does the Prime Minister know? Let me know what you think down in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more. See you next time.